Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacalyn. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacalyn at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV, home of Talking Heads, and welcome to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is The Power of Etiquette and Manners. And we are expecting a fabulous show as well as an amazing day of broadcasting. We will be having 1,000 episodes today on Business Talk Radio, and that is during the Listening Mentor show later on this afternoon. So thank you for being here for this amazing journey. We are also over 730 live shows on USA Global TV. So thank you for your support and for being here. My co-host is a dear friend, a wonderful man, the principal of the British School of Excellence, and he knows everything and anything about etiquette and manners. Let's welcome Phillip Sykes to the program. Hi, Phillip.
Hello, Dr. Jacalyn. Oh, my hat. How long have you been presenting for? How many months?
I think it's a year and 3 months.
Well, I salute you. That's a huge achievement, and really congratulations. That's just wonderful. And a very warm welcome to all of you listeners who are following us on a weekly basis, and to any newcomers, a very, very warm welcome. We are looking forward to taking you on a journey today and really bringing in some added value that you can implement into your lives.
And of course, you've got another wonderful dynamic guest backstage. But before we bring him out, Phillip, I just want everyone to know about the work that you're doing and how you're helping other people. So I'm going to spotlight you. And if you can just share what's going on over at the British School of Excellence and what can people expect when they enroll in your courses?
Super. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, for those who watch on a regular basis and listen in every week, there are many things going on in the background. We are always looking at developing new courses, new programs, adding extra value to our programs. We start off with the youngsters, 6 years old. Etiquette is our trademark brand name for working with children and giving them some quintessential tools and helping them build their confidence and giving them sort of that ability to have a resilience about them and help their mindset. Moving into mindset and manners for our teenagers, clearly focusing on manners, but really giving them those quintessential tools and preparing them to develop a phenomenal growth mindset, to believe in themselves, and to be able to put their best foot forward, to find their unique talents, and to really shine as individuals. We then have a program, funny enough, which is starting this coming Monday, and that is called The Polished Professional, where we focus on business etiquette and business excellence. And that is a really wonderful course which gives people, again, confidence, knowledge, and the ability to really help you move yourself even closer to your goals, to what do you have in your sights when it comes to business development, running your own operation, entrepreneurial, or working for an organization. We have various other courses that step up into Train the Trainer, which those are really focusing on helping people who really want to get into this industry and sector to really reach out to as many people out there and help them change their lives through the power of etiquette and manners. And it really is a very dynamic certified program. And actually all our courses have been accredited and certified. Some of you, again, new to the show, we have a very, very dynamic and a hugely wonderful, I say hugely, it's a massively wonderful department called our EQ faculty, headed up by my dear friend and work colleague, Richard Cullinan. And for those of you who really want to change your life, don't hesitate. I would urge and encourage every single person to go on the discovery of emotional intelligence. And there's no better place than our organization here at the British School of Excellence. And that's just scratching the surface. We've got personal coaching, we've got personal development, we've got beautiful gorgeous programs such as Power of the Pen, that old beautiful dying art of actually learning to write beautifully, whether it be a ballpoint pen or with a fountain pen. So that's just scratching the surface of what I would like to share with you today. And I'd really urge and ask all of you just to visit our website, the British School of Excellence.com, and have a little navigation through our website, and there's some fantastic articles on there as well. Coming up to Christmas, there's some amazing Christmas articles on there, how to sort of handle the office party, gift giving, all of those sort of things that will add some value to your lives.
Thank you so much, Philip. And you touched on something that I think is really important, and I shared this with you, that initially when we first connected, I was thinking that etiquette is a certain way of managing the dinner table, managing the dinner conversation, or drinking tea with your, whatever it is. It's so many misnomers that are incorrect. And so you've really opened my eyes, and I think everyone else's, about how extensive manners and etiquette are to EQ, as well as to being a good person, doing the right things.
100%, being a good person. And Dr. Jacalyn, this really leads into, I'm hugely excited obviously to welcome our guest, but this really leads into, if you want to get ahead in life and if you want to develop yourself and grow as an individual, whether it be amongst your friends and family and partners, or whether it be in business, manners and etiquette along with EQ are the real core of all of this. This is where this starts. And funny enough, I had a really wonderful conversation today with an influencer who's got over 2.5 million followers, and she is just phenomenal. And her handle is Sophia Green Eyes, and I really would like to get her on as a guest. But she was just sharing with me today, a lot of her audience are youngsters, and I think a lot of youngsters out there don't understand the relevance of etiquette and manners. And the only reason why is because they just weren't guided and shown them growing up. Gone are those sort of days. Life's become exceptionally busy. And unfortunately, families, whether they are, torn families, as in broken families and that sort of thing. Schools have got a heavy curriculum, so there's very little attention paid to the power of etiquette and manners. And we really can make a big difference in our lives when we understand the importance of etiquette and manners and the power of etiquette and manners. It really is hugely important.
Philip, while I have you on Spotlight, what would you like to say to all the parents out there to get them to understand that they need to start now with their children?
Great question. Well, for those of you out there right now, if you think about it, ladies and gentlemen, the jobs that we are familiar with to this as we speak now are not going to be here in the future. The future of work is going to change dramatically. Our children, I have a 7-year-old who popped onto the show last week in his elf outfit. My little Harley, and anyone out there with young children, your children are not going to be doing the type of roles and jobs that we are, very used to knowing and understanding. The world is moving so fast. And as we all know, the fourth industrial revolution is really, really on us as we speak. And, what are the future of jobs? And the World Economic Forum was talking about how we as human beings really need to wake up. And the key skills that are going to be needed in the future are going to be that creative mindset, that emotional intelligence. They talk about, analytical and critical thinking, being able to really, really handle those complex problems, using really good reasoning and logic. It's all good and well to talk about bots and artificial intelligence, but it's really the human being, the human touch that is really going to outperform. That active learning with a growth mindset. And I'm going to bolt on here, becoming a phenomenal active listener. Dr. Jacalyn, you talk about the power of listening in one of your amazing programs and courses that you run, a 4-part series. Again, judgment and decision making is going to be right there at the forefront. And here it comes, those interpersonal communication skills, that ability to exchange information and meaning between people will be one of the most vital skills during the fourth industrial revolution. And I tell you something right now, if we can give our children anything, it's going to be, and some people call them the soft skills. What I'm telling you right now, ladies and gentlemen, I call these hardcore life skills. That ability to have good leadership skills. We need to understand the importance of diversity and cultural intelligence. That is a huge one, and we all know what the world's been through over the last, I don't even want to bring up the centuries, but especially in the last sort of 20 months, you clearly are going to need technology skills. But the most important thing is we need to understand that change is on us. It's happening. We've been through massive change in the last 24 months. No one would ever expected where we would be as we stand now. The world is again, in a different place. And just understand the power of etiquette and manners will open those doors that some of the best education in the world cannot.
Brilliant, Phillip. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate the fact that you have a perspective that I don't have because I'm not a parent. So you can actually speak authentically about that because you do have a son. And in this world is so different. I can't even imagine what it's like bringing up children right now. It's and etiquette and manners are so important because there's so much anger in the world. So I would think that, as a parent, it would be really important, essential for children to understand not to judge, not to evaluate someone based on what they look like or what scenario you met them in. So congratulations to you for offering these wonderful programs and also for the insight and your own personal experience in doing so.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jacalyn. Thank you. No, it means the world to me. And the interesting thing is, just before we welcome our wonderful guest, our little son is, believe it or not, at 7, is going through a little entrance interviews for his next level of school. And we were just so thrilled the other day when we got feedback from the school that he's going to go to now. And the woman running, the headmistress and the woman who's the registrar, it gives me goosebumps. She just said, "You have got the most beautiful, polite little man on your hands. He is just exceptional." And that just, fortunately, I'd be very disappointed if he wasn't like that because my brand would be tarnished. But I get very emotional when I share that, and it really shines, And again, Dr. Jacalyn, a guest that I would love to bring on board over the next couple of weeks is an old friend of mine who said, when we were growing up, our sort of age group, manners were just the norm, right? It was when you had bad manners that you stood out. Now, when you've got good manners, you stand out.
Very true. Very true. And that's what we hope for everyone, that people take a real interest in how to lead a better quality of life, how to incorporate etiquette and manners, and how to really hold space for other people without judgment.
Completely. Yeah, you're so right.
Phillip,
I'll let you introduce Leo.
Please tell us about Leonardo, our guest.
Certainly. Again, Leonardo is become a really good friend over the last 18 months. I've got to know Leonardo. Unfortunately, we've never met in person, but how I got the privilege to meet Leonardo, he came on board to partner and position himself with Patrizia from the British School of Etiquette, Brazil, as who some of you had the privilege of engaging with last week. And for those of you who didn't pick up the last few shows, please go onto the YouTube channel and dial in and have a look at the past shows, because there's always golden nuggets in there that you will be able to take away. But Leonardo has come on board to take on a challenge to really get the British School of Etiquette Brazil out into the sort of open in the Brazilian marketplace in South America. Not only that, but Leonardo's got a hugely powerful strength within industry and change and through people. And this is really where he comes and brings so much value, not only to the British School of Etiquette Brazil, but to the organizations that he involves himself with and works with.
Well, I'm very excited to welcome him to the program. Welcome, Leonardo.
Hello, pleasure to be here.
Welcome.
Nice to have you here. So, Leonardo, we were talking a little backstage, and I always, by the way, I just want to let our guests know, I really love the time that we have before the show and sometimes after the show, because it might only be a few minutes, but you really at least get to have some personal conversation. So I immediately noticed how polite and mannerly you were, and even your tone of voice. And I think there's something to be said about that. There's something about the way we greet people with our tone of voice that I think leads a lot of, gives us an insight into their heart, so to speak. So I'd love for you to just share with our audience a little bit about your background and why manners and etiquette are important to you.
Perfect, thank you. Well, Well, first of all, about my background, I started off as in corporations, right? I started off as a consultant, and then as I went through the ranks of technology and business consultant, and as I went through the ranks, I realized that. Well, if I was working for technology, right? And in technology, we have kind of this thought that goes on everyone's mind that if you're really good technically, right, you will be able to go through the ranks faster, and you're going to be able to solve problems quicker, right? But in the end, I realized as I went through that reaching out to people and connecting to people was not only much faster but much nicer, right? So it gives us a sense of connection and pleasure, and when you connect to people and then you help people. So helping people was giving me more rewards than to solving complex technological problems, right? And as I went through, I started to develop my coaching career, and I started to coach business owners, right, to solve their problems. And in the end, most of the problems that they were facing were related to people, or as Phillip says, hardcore life skills, right? And not as much as how to know that you have to save some you have to save some money, for a campaign or a plan, or to have a strategic plan. Of course, this is all necessary, but in the end, they were struggling a little bit more with life skills and how to reach out to people. And this is when I met Patricia. Right, I started to coach her to help her with her business, but more with her business because she's a very great businesswoman. But more than that, trying to help her to understand herself and to try to reach out to connect to her audience more. And this is when I became her partner a few years after that. And this is what I just started my life, and I just made about my career about helping people and connecting to people. And what I see in this tech world, and now bridging a little bit with what you were discussing before, Dr. Jacalyn and Phillip, it's really interesting how this jobs of the future are going to be all about people. Of course, you need to know technical knowledge, but our kids are going to know that in school, right? And what they probably, or most likely, as far as I'm seeing, are not going to learn is how to bridge technology and people. And so the employees that have more life skills, hardcore life skills, are probably going to be the most successful one. And one of those skills is the tone of voice, as you said. So the tone of voice is something that brings people together. If you keep a good tone of voice or a pleasant tone of voice, and you don't pitch too much, right? People feel confident about you. They feel that you are a reliable person, and especially your facial expressions. If you have a calm facial expression, this is something also you can easily bring into the conversation and bridge and create the bridge with people's emotions. So etiquette and manners are really, for me, the bridge between two people's emotions, right? And what moves people, for me, it's pretty much about emotion, right? People can think a lot of things, but in the end, the emotion is what gonna bring them together and give them motivation for them to excel in their practices.
That's so beautifully said. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess Phillip is on mute.
I've got to have that T-shirt, mute. I love that word bridge. Bridge. This is exactly. It is such a powerful word. Bridging our being, bridging our connecting with people, and I know we can get far deeper into this material, but we obviously don't have the luxury of time on this particular these sort of amazing programs. But there's something that I really love sharing on this one, and that is it's about your energy. Patricia last week. Dr. Jacalyn, you asked Patricia last week, what is this, and she mentioned you choose to show up each day. You choose to be happy. You choose to put your best self forward. And again, this is bringing your energy, and this is using that amazing energy, your tonality, your body language. How do you present yourself? It all of a sudden just starts to gel so beautifully. And that is where people will absolutely want to learn more about you. They will want to connect with you. And this is the power of this.
I agree. And something I'd like to just discuss with the two of you is when we show up authentically and we are passionate about what we're doing, that doesn't mean that other people aren't going to throw rocks at us, right? That doesn't mean that other people are going to try to knock us off our horse, so to speak. But it's how we show up during these times that really gives insight as to who we are. What are your thoughts on that, Leonardo?
Exactly. So authenticity is one of my core values, right? So as complementing your what you said is, it's not going to make people not throw rocks at us, but probably will make us less likely to feel bad about this, right? Because in the end, if you're being authentic to you to yourself, you're doing what you love. You're being yourself. There's nothing else to be other than yourself, right?
Right. Well said. Philip, what would you like to add?
Again, another very strong and powerful word, authenticity. And I hope people have got their notebooks and pens handy to writing some of these amazing golden nuggets down, because it is about showing up, but being your true self. Don't try and be like someone else. We were all born unique. And it's funny enough today, unfortunately, one or two of our neighbors in our neighborhood don't seem to be overly friendly or particularly polite. And my son, I was dropping him off at a play date this afternoon, and he said, "Dad, why are some of our neighbors so grumpy?" And I said, well, maybe they just haven't been shown growing up how important it is to connect with people on these sort of really powerful, positive levels of being authentic, being kind, being generous. And he said, well, what can they do about it? And I said, well, the beautiful thing in life is that we can learn. We can actually, if we really want to put our best foot forward, it's up to us to take that initiative and to really bring our A game every single day. And some people, we get stuck. And I've said this before, a lot of people don't know what they need until you tell them what they need. And so just what Leah was talking about earlier is when you bring your true self into any situation, that authenticity, and people start to look at you and they say, there's something different about that individual. What is it? And maybe it doesn't trigger immediately, but through a period of time, you can absolutely start to see the people who have an aha moment. And next minute, they connect with you on a completely different way or a different level or a different angle. It's because they've picked up something from you that they are implementing into their lives all of a sudden. And this is the power of influence. This is the power of really dynamic, powerful influence, which really, for me, stands so strong.
I agree with both of you. Something I'd like to just add in there, and Philip, you touched on this, is that when someone is throwing a rock or being passive aggressive, I like to think about it, we can look at our own behavior and see, are we becoming now emotionally engaged where we're just going to fuel that controversy or whatever that discord is? Or are we going to take a step back and maybe pause for the 6 seconds, the 7 seconds, whatever it is, and think to ourselves, this person obviously is going through something and is in pain. How are we going to respond? Are we going to hurt them even more? Or are we going to give them some grace and we're going to act with etiquette and manners? Leonardo, anything you want to add to that?
Sure. Well, in the end, it's all about empathy, right? And you can. Well, sometimes I get the feedback from our students. Oh, sometimes I get nervous around you because I'm really want to know what to do, and I say, well, just be yourself, right? And the reason why I say that is I'm not going to correct you, right? If you're your authentic self, and when immediately after I say this, they just relax. Immediately relax, and I say, okay, this is what I want, right? And Philip, that's something Philip told me once that I never forgot. He told me, okay, who do you want to be to the person, right? Do you want to bring your authentic self and be the person that someone can call you in the middle of the night saying the car crashed, I need some help, or I got a flat tire, I need some help, and this is the person I want to be, right? And that's the thing. if someone is for some reason annoyed, or I don't know, angry or passive, or being passive aggressive, in the end, empathy would not be to step on this person's shoes, because that's impossible, right? I don't have the person's personality. I didn't live this person's life. But of course, I can understand, and I can get through the moment where this person is angry, or annoyed, and just understand and keep my authentic self in order to offer help to this person. And I guess if we do that, this is etiquette, right? This is etiquette and manners.
Absolutely. And I think when someone does reach out, many times that's difficult for people, right? To pick up the phone or maybe send an email and say, hey, I really need some help. And if we are truly authentic and leading a life that's filled with manners and etiquette, we're not going to respond with, oh, great. Thanks for calling me at 3 o'clock in the morning. Just what I need for you to wake me up. Yeah, I'll be there. But I would, because then we're being passive aggressive and doing the exact same thing that other people have done to us that we don't like. So I think it's also, how does it feel in our own body, the way that we're reacting? Do we feel good about the way we're showing up?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just love that word empathy. And again, everyone out there listening right now, you can see the power of etiquette and manners and emotional intelligence. This is all ties into this little, big ball that we can absolutely work with. It's like, working with a beautiful piece of plasticine and creating a figurine out of it. But that word empathy, understanding others and developing others and being very much service oriented and leveraging, and understanding diversity. And again, this boils down to such things as being politically aware, whether it be in the workplace, in the home, out in public. This is what this is all about at the end of the day. And when people really start to really get to the true grips and grasp of what etiquette, manners, and emotional intelligence are, your life changes. Your life changes almost, I'm almost going to say overnight. Interestingly, I think I may have shared this before, but years ago, I had the privilege of working with some pretty disruptive teenagers who really came from a very rough, part of London, council houses, and they were put on a live television program called Bad Teen to Ballroom Queen. And in those 5 weeks, they were given training every single day by professional dancers. And on, I think it was week 4 or week 5, and there's a clip of it on our YouTube channel. And they came in, they were surprised with an etiquette class through in those days, the British School of Etiquette, now obviously the British School of Excellence. And these, I knew I only had a few split seconds to connect with these children. They were teenagers, but let me tell you, the TV crew, they warned me in advance before they arrived that these kids, they're lippy and they're going to give you a few gears, be on your A game. And I said, thanks for the heads up. And I knew I had a few split seconds to connect with these amazing youngsters. And they came in, I greeted them. Now I'm dressed in my suit, and they're obviously cruising in, and jeans that are sort of hanging down their rear ends, and sort of walking in their style. And I get them to sit, and I go to the front of the room and I say, right, firstly, I'm not here to trip you up. Secondly, we're going to learn from one another. Is that okay with all of you? And I had them in my hands by that stage. Boom. And off we go on this journey. So much so, there was no cut and retake. This was live. So not live as in being broadcast, but live. There was no cut and can you do that again? So we were only meant to have about an hour and a half together. And 2 hours later, the film crew are saying, we have to close up. These teens have to get back to their residence. Anyway, long story short, they crowd around me at the end of this. They want to know this, they want to know that. And then I didn't know this, but they were privately interviewed off the back of attending the program for just that hour and a half, 2 hours. And when we eventually got to see this, so this was in October, when we eventually got to see the show in February, they were interviewing these teens at the end of the show, at the end of their experience with the organization. And firstly, the instructors on the Friday couldn't believe the change in attitude. Secondly, those youngsters said possibly one of the best things they've ever attended. And it was just, it gives me goosebumps hearing this, because in a short space of time, if you really want to make a change in your life, you have to commit, you have to put your best foot forward, and you have to jump in with both feet at the same time.
Oh, great story. And by the way, what about a wonderful way to build self-esteem and confidence in those youngsters, right? Now that they know that they have information that they might not have had otherwise, or they had to wait until much later in their lives. So that's really well done, Phillip.
completely. And, the interesting thing is, people think, oh, the knife and fork, blah, 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 that's what you teach. Well, I tell you, it's a lot deeper than that. But what was beautiful, we didn't have, obviously, plates of food, but we had cutlery to demonstrate and how to utilize the napkin correctly and all those sort of things. And maybe, Dr. Jacalyn, one of these days we can actually do a brief little introduction into fine dining etiquette on the show. But what was wonderful was we touched on table manners, the importance of table manners. And again, in the television series, when it was viewed, you saw them taking their dance partners out to dinner the very next night. And you saw just this little bit of how they conducted themselves. There was a prowess about it. There was a confidence about them. They didn't get it all right. I mean, table manners, like everything, it takes practice. But it was just so lovely to see that they had taken a few of the tools and guidance that I'd shared with them, and they were implementing it.
That had to be a great feeling for you as well.
Oh, amazing. It just gives me goosebumps. And, it isn't on, I think there's snippets of it on our YouTube channel. People can look at it. It was called Bad Teen to Ballroom Queen. So that was quite a few years ago. Yeah.
It's interesting when you talk about TV, because I think also, let's take this show, for example. We didn't have a conversation beforehand saying, okay, when Phillip speaks, Leonardo and I are not going to speak. You watch so many television shows where the people are actually over talking each other. And I don't watch a lot of TV, believe it or not, but there's some reality TV shows that I was watching. And I just got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore because there was no manners or etiquette. People are constantly talking over each other, screaming at one another. And I'm sure that makes for good ratings. But for me, I thought, I don't want that in my life. I want nice, happy manners, etiquette. So what are your thoughts? Do you enjoy watching shows like this where people are over talking each other? Do you think that's kind of interesting and fun, Leonardo?
Not really, not at all. Well, I'm not very into reality shows, anyways. But I'm much more interested in conversation where one speaks, the other one listens, and we can actually have a nice exchange. Because sometimes, well, we are in a very fast-paced world right now, right? So we're sometimes talking about some very interesting topics that we could go a little bit deeper, but then someone interrupts, and then we kind of have to stop and just roll back to what we were talking before, or we just forget what we were talking before. And in the end, what this gives us is a very superficial notion of those subjects and those people, right? And it's very nice to try to keep the subject to a very nice level where we can actually build the bridge we were talking about, the emotional bridge we were talking about.
Good point. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts about this comment that I'm going to make, that potentially people conduct themselves in that way, taking us off topic to something else because they really don't want to go down that road of whatever the topic is because they have a fear about it, they don't have knowledge about it, or maybe they just like to have the spotlight.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Of course, also in terms of etiquette and manners, right, and empathy, it's you can really see when a person doesn't want to go down a road, right? We want to discuss a little bit further on that topic, but this is different when someone is interrupting you, right? And sometimes a person interrupts you to get spotlight. Sometimes it interrupts. I don't know from what I see, 80% is just anxiety. Right, people just want to talk more than listen, and well, I'm really a fan of Carl Rogers, right? And I think to listen is really important, and if you practice active listening, you would not talk right immediate. I mean, you cannot even talk just 1 second after this person ended his or her speech, right? So you need to think about it a little bit. This is what I think, at least.
I agree with you. With all the interviews that I conduct, I can tell right away when somebody has stopped listening and they're ready to just pounce with whatever it was. Like they have something in their mind. I've got to say what I have to say right now. And as soon as Phillip stops talking, I'm coming out with it. And it might have nothing to do with whatever it is. I see it and I think, okay, they stopped listening. So I like your point about anxiety, that might be a big reason. Phillip, what can you add to that?
I think anxiety is definitely a key indicator, and that is a lot of people sometimes are battling within whatever it might be. They might have brought something in from elsewhere, and I'm talking about mentally and emotionally, into an environment. People are nervous around other people, so they just talk for the sake of talking. And that's, funny enough, we on one of our programs, or many of our programs, we talk about remembering people's names. And one of the main reasons why we don't remember someone's name is because we're anxious in that first introduction of meeting. We don't slow down, we're not present, and we don't make an effort of actually getting to know who that person is. And when I say who that person is, what is your name? So if I met Leo for the first time and he introduced himself, Leonardo, how do you do? And I said, Philip, how do you do? The first thing I'm going to go to is I'm going to go to Leonardo and I say, that's a wonderful name. Wow, it's a strong, powerful name. If I may ask, how is Leonardo spelt? And he would then explain to me, Leonardo. And then I might even comment and say, well, if I may ask, does that name stem from a family name, or is it someone? What's the relevance? Not the relevance. That's wrong. That's a bit arrogant. But where does the name stem from? You know, as in, what were you christened Leonardo? What do you like to be called? Do you like to be called Leo? You know, make a big deal about an individual's name. Obviously, another tool would be I'm never going to get Leonardo's name because of Leonardo da Vinci, and so I also use marrying of remembering people. Along those lines, you know, if the name is Margarita Pizza, but it's about being present when you connect and meet with people. And when you do slow down, exactly what Leonardo was saying, you know, you can't just smash and trigger into someone the moment they've finished talking and taken their last breath. You've really got to stop, pause, be present, engage, that active listening that Leo was talking about there, and then re-engage with that individual. And Dr. Jacalyn, we've said this so many times on the show, you know, listen to understand rather than to respond. Then take your time and then reconnect and re-engage. And I mean, we can obviously dig ourselves into a wonderful, positive subject matter and whole in this one. But that's my sort of 5 cents worth of information or feedback on your question.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm going to go to Leonardo. I just have one comment to make. In my own work, what I find is I ask that the guest arrive 10 minutes before the show. And there are many times that, you know, there's technology issues. People can't arrive before the show. The show's started. I know they're coming. And I haven't had a chance to speak with them. And I don't know how to pronounce their name. And now I have no way to ask them what their name is because we've already started the show. And I feel such anxiety about it because I didn't have that opportunity to connect with them and give them the space that I would have liked to have given, even if it's just 10 minutes. So I think there's something really to be said about that, about how to remember someone's name, because once you actually have interaction with them, you want to know their name. You want to say their name properly. They're not just a name on a piece of paper. They're not a name on a plaque. They're a human being, and you want to be able to connect with them. Leonardo, what can you add to that?
Well, yeah, and there's I think the most awkward situation is when you already know a person and the person doesn't remember your name. And the far you go into that, I mean, the far you go into knowing this person and living with this person, or you know, working with this person, and this person doesn't know your name, the awkward it gets, right? And then you know, sometimes it might happen as well. Of course, it's very important to practice the techniques that Philip said, and also what you said, Dr. Jacalyn. But it's sometimes, of course, we forget. And but very important about this is to never let that space I mean, to grow too much. So okay, so it's really important to practice those techniques. But if you forgot someone's name, just go ahead and say, I'm sorry. I mean, as soon as you can, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Could you tell me again? How do you spell it? And then you use the techniques that Philip said, right? And I guess this is also part of the anxiety we feel today of being judged, right? In the end, what we feel within interactions, there are two things we can fear, right? The first one is being attacked, which I would say we're, in terms of society, in a place where that doesn't happen too much, right? And the second thing is to be judged, right? And that fear to be judged make us avoid, by all means, awkward, what we call awkward silence, right? But in the end, silence is not supposed to be awkward, right? Silence is supposed to be a gift. Okay, I'm silent because I listen to you, and I'm giving I'm thinking about it, right? I'm spending my energy thinking about what you said so I can reply to you in the best way I can. And this is also goes into hand in hand with the thing of the name, right? So if you don't if you don't remember a person's name, just go ahead and ask it. But if you can do that during the introduction, even better.
I absolutely love the fact that I am here with two authentic expert listeners. It feels so good. I can't even tell you. That was such a great share that you just made. And something that I'll contribute to that in terms of my own insecurities. I usually know the person's name, but sometimes I don't remember how to pronounce it correctly because dealing with people all over the world, there's different accents, people pronounce things differently. And so I have found in some cases, if I have a guest coming back and I don't remember how to say their name, I feel very anxious. I feel very upset with myself. And I've decided just let them know, hey, I'm a human being. I want to pronounce your name correctly. It's really important to me. And I don't remember how. Would you mind telling me? And in the beginning, I thought to myself, maybe they're going to judge me that I'm not listening or that I don't care. But it's not any of that at all. It's just I want to make sure I have the pronunciation correct. So do you think that it's to your point, Leonardo, in those cases, just go to the person as quickly as possible and ask them to pronounce their name and maybe use some of Phillip's techniques to help you remember how to say the syllables?
Absolutely. And I really love what you said about I want to know how to pronounce your name. This is really important to me. What you're actually saying, right, is you are really important to me. And you are so important to me that I actually want to spend time to learn how to pronounce your name. And sometimes I even go, I might miss a couple of times. And then it just becomes a funny exercise, which is great. And people really love to be appreciated at the level where you make mistakes trying to pronounce this person's name, right? So absolutely.
Yes. Great points. And while we're on the topic of names, I have a question for the two of you. This happens to me quite frequently. I have a professional relationship with someone, and my name is Dr. Jacalyn or Jacalyn, and somebody will just start calling me Jackie. Hey, Jack. Hey, Jackie. And I immediately feel this, which I don't want to feel, but I think to myself, oh, I'm sorry. Did you ask for permission to call me by that name? Because I don't like to be called by that name. So I asked you, Leonardo, backstage how I should refer to you. But if I just started calling you Leo and you go by Leonardo, how does that make you feel?
Yes, this is interesting. Well, I need to give a little bit of background on my country very fast. So in Brazil, we tend to be very informal, right? So Leonardo, we don't really go. It's even sometimes even considered rude if you call a person by the last name, right? If you say Mr. Prevot, right? My last name. Sometimes it might be even a little. Oh, okay. What have I done anything wrong, or do you want what do you want to talk about? But of course, usually around the world, it's really important to since I work with multinational companies, right? So it's really important to go by what this person likes to be called, and I really appreciated what you did. Really, now you know a little bit of the background of Brazilian culture, so I wouldn't be offended or anything. But for every other country, we need to consider the cultural differences, and I think it's really important to ask the person how this person wants to be called, right? And also if you add that little not trick, but the little practice that you brought, which is this is really important to me. That would be wonderful. I really love that. I'm gonna take that on.
Thank you. And I appreciate you giving the background about Brazil. So, Phillip, if I'm speaking to you and let's say we're on this television show and I say, hey, Phil, what are your thoughts? Now, will you correct me? Is it mannerly to correct me or should you just let it go?
Sure, that's a great question. I think you need to read the situation. So growing up, I'll never forget. My mum was fastidious. If people said Phil, she would correct it's Philip. As I've got older, if someone calls me Phil, Philly boy, Philly, Philemon, I honestly, Philippe, Filippo, I don't take any offense to it. I look at it as a term of endearment. I think when you're meeting people for the first time and they shorten your name and it just says, hey, Jax, how are you doing today? Whoa, hold the phone. I don't know you. You don't know me. And you just jumped to shortening my name. That's when you would step in and say, actually, and you could make a little bit of banter with it. You could say, actually, I've always been christened Jack. I was christened Dr. Jacalyn, or christened Jacalyn. And that's the name I love. And I feel very I take ownership of that name. I've never been called a Jack or Jax or Jackie or anything like that. So if you wouldn't mind, please, I'd really appreciate you, calling me Jacalyn and in a professional sense, Dr. Jacalyn. And it's okay to correct people. It is, but do it with, going back to that lovely tonality Lea was talking about earlier, this is the importance of, tonality and just gently and softly explaining to someone. Some people are very abrupt. Some people are just, her name's not X, my name is Y. And they can be very sort of straight to the jugular. And that can then put the other person on the back foot, and it's gonna lend itself to an uncomfortable situation. So I think it is about getting permission. How would you like me to refer to you, and how do I pronunciate your name? Out of interest, was your name growing up as a young girl, as a young lady, was your name ever shortened? And make it, again, show interest in the name. I think it's really important.
These are fantastic points. It's all about how you respond, the tone of voice, and I think also your intention. What is your intent when you are responding? For me, with Jackie, I just want to close the loop on that. I don't see myself as Jackie anymore. Jackie was the young girl running through the fields, or what. I don't feel like Jackie anymore. And people will say to me, but Jackie's so young and carefree. And well, I'm not young anymore. I'm not as carefree as I used to be, but I still feel like I've earned Jacalyn, if that makes sense.
It's ownership. It is. And again, I think it's really important to let people know who you are, because it's your identity, and people need to identify with you on this. They really and truly do. But it's showing respect when you really make an effort to connect with someone on their name. It is such a powerful tool. It's exactly, I love the word, it's very important to me to get your name right. It's very important to me to understand how to pronunciate it. And actually, just on this note, just yesterday, I had to very boringly reignite my year's contract on my mobile telephone. And the moment I speak to anyone who's helping me on the other end, I always have a pen and paper at hand. I say, if I may ask, how do I pronunciate your name? And then I will go through it. And her name was Asish, and she had a slight accent. So I said, is it Asish? She said, you've got it spot on. And so then I could refer to this lovely young lady on the other end of the phone. Asish, that's a one. Thank you so much for your help. Or Asish, I'd really appreciate if you could look into this telephone number for me. It just builds unbelievable connection. And then at the end of the call, I say, Asish, it's been a true delight engaging with someone like you. Thank you for your professional approach. And boom, all of a sudden, you've just left a mark, firstly, and secondly, you've made that person, you just elevate them to another level.
Brilliant. Thank you. As we come to the last segment of our show, I want to tie in name, addressing people by their name, along with the power of the pen, and also what we discussed last week about greeting cards. So there's still time for people to send cards, right? Which cards are fabulous. I would love to get some cards, just letting people know. So how do you address someone on the envelope? That's the first thing. Do you put Mr. So-and-so? Do you put Phil? Do you put Phil? How do you address them? And then how important is the clarity and the time that you put into your penmanship? So in other words, we've all been to an event, we go to a wedding, right? Then we get the thank you. And it's like, dear, blah, 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 blah. It looks like, so you have 30 seconds, write the note. So how do we carry ourselves through in an etiquette way when we're sending out cards, handwritten notes? I'll start with you, Leonardo.
Oh, I'll give that to Philip. He's the specialist on that. Much better than me.
Sprung the ball to me, which thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's say, Dr. Jacalyn, let's say, for example, I went to Leonardo's home for a lovely Christmas meal, and I got back home and really sort of firstly recall the event of the evening. And when you're writing your thank you letter, this really takes time and energy and thought. Bring into play some of the memorable points of the evening. Obviously, compliment the hospitality, compliment the beautiful food, compliment if they were serving, if it happened to be wines, the wine that was being served, the conversation, and really put some flesh on the bone in your thank you letter or thank you note. I mean, yes, a nice dear Leo, thank you for a wonderful evening. I hope to see you again soon. Best wishes, Philip. That's better than nothing. But when you really reflect on why you felt the evening was so special and so wonderful, and how grateful you were to be invited, and again comment and compliment the other guests that they may have invited that you got to meet for the first time. Really put some serious thought into your thank you letter, and take time, prep it. Do a rough draft to start off with, and then if you're happy with that, then you can obviously, as I said, you could keep it, or you might need to neaten it up, so therefore you do it again. But that for me is really important. And I don't have a thank you card to hand that we would have received in the past. I tend to keep thank you notes and thank you cards from people. But again, it really does make a huge difference, and it makes you feel so incredibly appreciated when you do receive a card and a letter. And always think about the effort and energy you put into writing that letter or that card. How would the other person feel when they receive it? Because that is the crucial key here. And when it comes to addressing, now it comes to the envelope, I would put on there Mr. and Mrs. Prevot, or Mr. and Mrs. L. Prevot. That would be the normal form on an envelope. So if I was just writing to Dr. Jacalyn, I would be Dr. Jacalyn, and then your surname, and then your address, and then pop that in the post. So there are very good and simple formalities to letter writing. And again, quality of paper, the quality of your stationery, take that into account as well. It does make a difference.
Thank you, Philip. They're great tips that you provided. My next question is it okay? Is it etiquettely, is it with etiquette, I should say, or mannerly, to send an email as a holiday card, or to send an email as a thank you?
Again, I'll kick in there. Look, I think if we're sending holiday cards now, the world, we've got friends all over the world. So obviously the email card is going to get, hopefully, if it doesn't go to their spam or junk folders, hopefully will arrive in their inbox. I mean, just give you an example. We write a Christmas card to various friends around the world each year. And 9 times out of 10, 4 months later, we've received the card back. One went off to New Zealand, and 3 months later never got to the addressee. And so cards, unfortunately, nowadays, the postal service around the world has slipped up in certain parts of the world. So take that into account. But for example, if I'm going to send a Christmas card from here to, let's say, Paris or to Spain, I'm pretty, give or take, it's more than likely you'll get there. Sending a card to South Africa at the moment, the postal service is a mess. So the likelihood of anyone receiving a card, it would have to be registered mail, and then obviously that adds huge expense. And again, I think people are being sensitive now about cost. So if you were putting together 100 Christmas cards to various people around the world, that will obviously escalate in expense. So Dr. Jacalyn, I think as rules of engagement, rules and etiquette sort of change with the times, putting some time and effort into an e-card can get some good mileage. So it's not just a little email, happy Christmas. Put some effort into a nice e-card, and that can really add some value. But if you can send a card to someone within, let's say, your own environment, your own country, then I think that's a wonderful thing to do.
Thank you, Philip. I have to share that yesterday I actually got an e-card from a guest. It was the first time, and I actually was very touched that the person took the time to do that. Leonardo, how do you feel about getting e-cards or getting thank you notes from people via email?
Well, I think it's when it's email, since the form you cannot really see handwriting and everything. I think the content, of course, is key, right? And by that, I really like the appreciation exercise, right? The one from Positive Psychology from Dr. Seligman. So the most, even being an e-card, if it's being, if what's written is something specific of what of the moment we spend together. And the more specific and more personal for me, the better. Right? It creates more energy, creates more passion, it creates more joy. Right. So if a person says, as Philip said, if a person says, well, great spending time with you, thank you, that's okay. But if the person says, well, great spending time with you, I love the joke you told, and I really enjoy, the zucchini you created, you've baked or something like that, if it's a dinner or something. So and in that case, that creates connection, that creates joy, even in an e-card format. But if you gather that and you put into a writing letter, a written letter, then it's unbelievably more powerful.
I definitely agree with that. Philip, I was just thinking about what you had said before and about how we show up. If we go to an event and we don't actually have a good time and the food wasn't very good and we didn't think that there was anyone of interest there, should we still send the thank you?
Absolutely. I think the fact is, you've got to show up. It's your choice to make the most of the situation, with all due respect. I know certain people can be as dull as dishwater, and no matter how much humor you bring into the situation or the conversation, and it just falls on so-called deaf ears. There's no gel, there's no va-va-vum, as I like to call it. I think, at the end of the day, no doubt the host, hostess, or the event organizers went to an effort to have you there and, to entertain you. It's always polite. It's not about you. It's about the other person at the end of the day. So by sending a thank you, and, yes, maybe the food wasn't great, maybe the hospitality was so-so, the company was very boring, it's still something. And I don't like the term fake it, but, bring a bit of puff to it, add a little bit of panache to your thank you card. Just let that person know, hey, thank you for making an effort and thank you for inviting me to the event. I'm wishing you all the very best, and hopefully our paths will cross again soon in the near future. So I would always urge anyone to send a thank you, no matter the situation.
Excellent. Thank you. And Leonardo, I feel like somebody made an effort to put that meal together. Somebody spent money to purchase the ingredients to put something together. That time is valuable. And even if it didn't turn out the way that we would want it to, we still need to acknowledge people and give them our respect. Do you agree?
Completely. I guess sometimes we let the pessimist side of ourselves get the best of us, right? And there is this characteristic of pessimism or optimism, which is I'm not sure if this is the word in English, so I'm sorry, but to penetrate into other areas of our life, right?
Yeah.
And so it's called, at least in Portuguese, it's called something like penetration capacity of pessimism into other lives of our area. And I really don't believe that a night or an event or something is 100% bad, right? There's always something that you can practice in your gratitude and appreciation exercise that you can actually, appreciate in a way that would transform the evening. You're not lying, you're being authentic, and you're pointing out that was really good or that was really appreciated. And in the end, that transforms the entire thing.
Well said. Thank you. Gentlemen, we have had so many wonderful points that you've shared today. Thank you. I'd love to close out this show with whatever your biggest takeaway was that you've learned from each other. And I'll just start. So I learned so much. I have a whole list, but one thing that really stands out to me is, Leonardo, when you talked about the culture there in Brazil, that was really something that I wasn't aware of. So be aware of the fact that in different cultures, it's not as formal in some ways as in others. Understand what the culture is, do some research, talk to the person, ask them, how would you like to be addressed? And I think once you do that, you'll be able to build an instant connection that you wouldn't have had otherwise. Leonardo?
Well, I loved learning with you, Dr. Jacalyn, about, I already told you a number of times about it's really important for me to know your name. This was absolutely lovely. And well, I'm always learning with Philip, right? And I really understood how he said, that we need to start writing the letter, because since we have this cultural difference here in Brazil, sometimes you can start with the first name, or of course we always start with a last name. But the way Phillip described as you should write it down for me was enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you. And Phillip, I also wanted to just comment on what you shared about writing the letter. Put in something that actually happened that you can reference. I'm still laughing about the conversation we had, or that zucchini bread was really a winner. May I have the recipe? Something in there that shows that you really were engaged and you really do appreciate the other person.
It's so key. It is so key. And again, this is some of the takeaways that I've taken from today. Bridge and emotion. Boom. That's number one. Authenticity and your core values. You've got to show up. Be authentic. Bring your core values. Bring in your empathy. Be yourself. And again, I love that. Just to complement what Leonardo was saying there. It's very important that I get your name correct. Could you help me understand or pronunciate it correctly? It's important to me. And then I think, again, going back to that particular situation, we've all been to them. I've been to many, well, not many, but a few dinner parties or events where, honestly, the person, let's say to your right-hand side, you couldn't make them laugh even with the funniest joke in the world. But you've just got to persevere, and you've got to show up. You've got to bring, yourself into the room and look at it. What can I learn from other people here? What can I take away? And I don't ever believe that any event is going to be a complete flop, unless you're in the Rocky Horror Picture Show or something like that. I don't know. But, at the end of the day, it is about you looking at an opportunity and making the most of it, and making every moment count. And this is really important, that time there. Make it worthwhile, make it count. And it really is. It's such an important aspect of our lives, is showing up every single day.
Thank you so much. And on a future show, I would love to discuss seating arrangements. So whether it's a formal event like a wedding, or if you're having people over at your home, there's always that time when you are supposed to sit next to, even on a sofa, you're next to somebody that's like, no matter what I say, they're not going to laugh. They're not going to be interested. And how do you deal with it? So let's talk about that in the future.
Wonderful opportunity. Wonderful.
All right, gentlemen, this has really been a wonderful pleasure. I'm going to spotlight each of you. And of course, we have your contact information out there. But for people listening on the radio, Business Talk Radio, Leonardo, how can people reach you?
Okay, so the best way to reach me is either on LinkedIn. So it's Leonardo Bianco Prevot with a T with no sound at the end. And in my email, levprevot at hotmail.com. Thank you.
And I'm just going to spell your name for people. So on LinkedIn, it's LeonardoBiancoPrevot. How'd I do?
Great, thank you.
I can read, yay. All right, thank you so much for being here, Leonardo.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It was a pleasure.
Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
What a fun show, Phillip.
Super, really. I mean, you can just see the caliber of the people that we are so blessed to bring into the studio, Dr. Jacalyn, who've got just a wealth of experience and knowledge. And there's a common string running through all of this, is they conduct themselves in a certain way. And this is, this is what this is all about. And that's why they are forging ahead with their lives, and not just their careers, but their lives in general.
So true. And I sit and reflect at the end of the day, and then tomorrow, I think about everything that I learn all throughout the week from people from all over the world. I just learned, 10, 15 things here, and I can't wait to write them all down, because that's what I hope that we really, people are really taking away from our shows and our programming, is that we are here to provide true news. We're here to provide information to help elevate us, to help us feel better, to help us hold space for other people. And you're just doing a really fantastic job of that, Phillip. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure. It's a joy. I look so forward to connecting and engaging with people all over the world as often as possible. And, again, for you inviting me to be your co-host is just such a wonderful opportunity and experience. And I just pray that people are dialing in and tuning into the various channels that you present on, because there's always a wealth of knowledge to all the shows that you distribute throughout the week. And I mean, it's just incredible material.
Thank you. And I also want to let our audience know that you and I had a wonderful conversation earlier this week. And I encourage people, if you're working together, take the time to get to know one another. Because if I can understand a little bit about what's important to you, and then I can understand more and more and more, it makes for a better relationship. And it makes me think to myself, how can I help him with what he's doing? How can I support him with what he's doing? And that really takes relationships to a whole new level.
Totally. So powerful, ladies and gentlemen. Always at the forefront of your mind. You should always be thinking of, how can I connect that person? Who could I introduce that person to? How can I assist? How can I help? And it is about making time. Everything in life is about making time. Everything's about a commitment, and everything is, never have the mindset of, well, if I do X, what's in it for me? If you adopt that mindset and attitude, there's not going to be much in it for you now or in the future, that's for sure. Everything's about an investment in helping other people and making an effort to connect and check in. Dr. Jacalyn, you mentioned something earlier in the show today. We don't know what people are going through in this world. We don't. I mean, we've got an idea, a general idea what people are going through because of the pandemic and all this negativity, sure. But each individual, I walked down the street the other day and you look at a person, for the love, all the love and tea in China, you would never know what that person's going on in their lives, what they've been through, what they've experienced. So we've got to give people the benefit of the doubt. We've got to make an effort to get to know people. We really and truly do. And I just cannot advocate this enough. Stop and give people a little bit of your precious time, because you'll be amazed at what will come out of it. I know we've run way over time, but again, just the other day I was out and I get quite nervous around Christmas time because I've got the most wonderful wife, but to buy things for her, I just get, bamboozled. So Christmas gift buying for me, I get a little bit anxious, and so off I went the other day thinking, okay, I'm well in advance, and I thought, okay, I'll head off to our well-known department store here at John Lewis, and I was in the perfume department looking around thinking, crumbs, am I going to get this right? Do I buy this perfume on behalf of my son and give it? Anyway, I'm thinking about all these, and I meet this beautiful old lady. She must have been in late 70s, and she says, and I said, isn't that a wonderful scent that you just sprayed on that card? She said, yes, I'm looking for a new scent. In the old days, I used to wear opium, and it used to precede me into a room, and people knew I was arriving. And we got into this amazing conversation, and it was just so delightful. And I promise you, if I'd had another half an hour, which I didn't, unfortunately, I would have honestly said, would you fancy having a cup of tea together? And in John Lewis, there's a tea shop up there. And these are the things that can absolutely give you so much value in life, and you can give so much value to other people. And I just urge everyone to go out there and make an effort. And it is about being kind. And we all need to be more kind right now, more so than ever before.
All right. I love that story that you shared. And I can just see you in the perfume section. And I can see the woman. And I know that fragrance, opium. And I love her comment about it used to precede her into a room. So you were able to take a time when you felt really anxious, and that can really preoccupy somebody, right? When you're trying to find a gift and you're like tunnel vision, like, what am I going to get? And yet you were open and you saw someone around you, and you took the opportunity to form a relationship with that person. That's wonderful.
It was deeper than that, because she had lost her husband years ago. She said, I don't have to buy gifts for anyone anymore, unfortunately. And I said, well, I'm sure you bought many gifts. And he said, my husband often used to say, I don't know what to get you, darling. Here's some money. Go and buy your own gift. And we had a real banter. We had a really good connection. And hopefully it lifted her day, because I would imagine she is on her own. Loneliness, as we all know out there, ladies and gentlemen, it's I don't like to talk, with such strong words, but loneliness, as they say, is a killer. It really is. Loneliness is something that can absolutely diminish people. And we need to reach out. We need to make a little bit of an extra effort in this world.
Thank you, Phillip. One comment that I want to leave our audience with is, people might reach out to you and it's not a convenient time, right? It's not, you're in the middle of doing something. And I teach this in my course, The Power of Listening, but don't react. So what do I mean by this? Let's say someone reaches out to me and I just got off a show. I've got 5 minutes to get back on another show and they want an answer about something. If I come back with, I'm in the middle of the show. If you were watching my shows, you'd know I'm in the middle of a show, but apparently you're not a fan and you're not. And I go on and on and on, right? Then I'm taking myself to a low level and I am now being a bully. And even though that person might be inappropriate because they didn't ask for permission, is this a good time? Step up to the next level, right? Carry yourself with integrity. Think about the fact that you don't know what the other person's going through and don't overreact. Just take a pause, take a breath and say, I'd love to help you. I'll get back to you shortly, whatever the case is.
So valid, so important. And again, Dr. Jacalyn, as you teach on your power of listening, if someone calls you or you call someone, always check in with that person. Is now a good time? Is it convenient to speak right now? And when the moment you do that, I promise you, relationships will be far more dynamic and people will respect the fact that you've taken the time and the sensitivity and initiative to check in with that individual, because timing is everything, as they always say.
It's very true. And one final comment about that, Philip. I have asked people during the power of listening if they ask for permission, and I've gotten some very interesting answers that people don't want to ask for permission because they don't want to hear, no, this isn't a good time, because they want to talk about what they want to talk about when they want to talk about it. And what I share with them is, but the other party's already letting you know that they're not fully present. So wouldn't you like someone to be able to give you the space to hear what you have to say instead of they're in the middle of something and you're just going to throw something at them? And how are they supposed to deal with that? Oh, I never thought of that.
Yeah, what a wonderful analogy. And I know I cut you short by a split second there. Just yesterday, I had a Zoom meeting teed up with a work colleague of mine, and we were presenting to an organization. And I could see the gentleman who we were presenting to, he wasn't in the zone. He had to just leave his office because the office background was too noisy. He was in a coffee shop. The connection kept dropping. And I turned around and said, Johnny, I tell you what, I can see you're under pressure. It's that time of the year, you're busy in your industry. Why did we reconvene when you are at home and you've got no interruptions? I could just see him almost take his hand across his brow going, oh, thank you. Because I promise you, we would never have given him the value. We would never have been able to get through and knock on the door that needs knocking on right there and then. It would have fallen on deaf ears. It really would. We would not have the same impact. And this is about the ability to read people. There's so much in this that we've obviously only just touched on.
And Philip, as you were offering that suggestion, I felt like I was that person, like, oh, yes, thank you. Thank you for seeing my body language and understanding that I am under a lot of pressure. So that gentleman, I'm sure, was very appreciative of your suggestion, your thoughtfulness.
Completely. We've reconvened to Wednesday morning before he goes off to the office. He can have in his study and there'll be a completely different ballgame. So it's really, timing is everything. It's quintessential. It's fundamental.
And it's etiquette and manners.
Completely. 100%.
Philip, what's the best way for people to reach you and who should reach out?
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you listening on the radio, it's the British School of Excellence.com. hello at the British School of Excellence.com. And then if you ever want to reach out to me on WhatsApp, unfortunately the digits have fallen off there, but it's +44 780 885 9914. Please feel free to engage. It really would be a pleasure to make some time to connect with you. And if I may, Dr. Jacalyn, I didn't ask your permission, but for any of you out there, it's Christmas time, it's a time of giving. If you are listening to the show and you're interested in taking some of our courses, then we'd love to offer you a Christmas 10% discount, if that's okay with you all, and you just use Dr. Jacalyn as the key phrase when you email hello at the British School of Excellence.com. There's only one caveat. That doesn't lend itself to the Train the Trainer program, but to all our other programs out there, I would love you to take the opportunity to connect with us and take the opportunity to grow and succeed.
Phillip, for people watching and listening, just to reiterate, they can email you at hello@thebritishschoolofexcellence.com. And if they, in the subject, they can reference Dr. Jacalyn, and they can get 10% off on any of the courses. So if they actually want to go and book the courses, they're going to go to your website. And then how do they enter the promo code there?
Yeah, I just think email also. That would be the best thing to do. And then we can send out a link for them to sort of make the payments and that sort of thing.
Fantastic. Thank you for making it so easy for everyone. hello@thebritishschoolofexcellence.com.
Yeah, super. Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn.
Thank you, Phillip. I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Super. Wonderful. Have an amazing weekend and good luck with the rest of your shows today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
What an amazing show. So many powerful tips that we can all use. So if you missed part of the show, please go over to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV. And even if you did see the show, you may want to go back and take some notes, because a lot of these points will really differentiate how you feel about yourself, how people see you, and how you are bringing light and love to the world. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for listening. As I mentioned, we will be celebrating 1,000 broadcasts on Business Talk Radio today at 2:15 Eastern Time, which is 7:15 British Summer Time. And that's on our show, The Listening Mentor. And my guest is Caroline Heward. I'm going to close out the show with a wonderful new sponsorship from Trish Robichaud, and she is the founder of Changing Paces. And then we will be back with our next show, Fashion, Fitness, Travel, and Leisure. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Leonardo. Bye.
The world is changing, and your company needs to change with it. Whether it's procurement, employment, marketing, or customer service, it's now more important than ever for your business processes to be inclusive to people with disabilities. Hi, I'm Trish Robichaud with Changing Paces, and I'm here to tell you that making your business processes accessible to people with disabilities is simply good for business. Accessibility and inclusion are the law. But here's what you may not realize. Disability inclusion is an opportunity, not an obstacle. In fact, a recent 4-year study found that companies that fully embrace disability inclusion had a 30% higher profit margin than those that didn't. Your investment in staff disability inclusiveness training can pay off in areas like innovation, brand recognition, as well as customer and employee satisfaction and loyalty, not to mention productivity and profitability. At Changing Paces, we can help you make that happen for your business. Our experts have real-life experience that will help your team gain insight and best practices they won't get anywhere else. And we can help you create a customized training program to bring your organization into compliance with local and industry regulations. This topic is very close to my heart for me, very personal. Dealing with the challenges of MS for the past 25 plus years and having lost my job as a result of my diagnosis back then, I've made it my mission to bring disability out of the darkness and create a more welcoming environment for people of all abilities. As a pioneer in the field of inclusiveness, our company developed and implemented one of the first accessible customer service training programs in Canada. We provide complete online training solutions that blend with your branding, your policies, and your systems. Between our disability subject matter experts and our technical partners, we can provide you with both the content and the platform that you need to create an evergreen training program that empowers your people while it transforms your organization and your company culture. In short, we make disability inclusion easy in all parts of your business. Contact us now for a quote or consultation at info@changingpaces.com. Your bottom line will thank you.